Alright, so today's video we're finally going to upgrade my door speakers to these Focal Auditor Edition speakers. Now, these are on the lower end of Focal, so it's the Auditor Edition. This entire set was roughly under $200 from Crutchfield. It does come with the rear speakers, the 6.5, as well as the 6.5 component speakers in the front with the tweeter and a crossover. Now, the best thing about when you buy it from Crutchfield is that they do give you this little harness too, as well as adapter plates, because the stock speakers in the front are 6x9s and these are 6.5, so you are able to fit the 6.5 speaker in the 6x9 spot. Unfortunately, this kit is not 100% plug and play. There are a couple of modifications you do have to do, like grind a little bit of the adapter plate in order for the speaker to sit flush, as well to wire the crossover into the speakers here, because the door speaker here runs parallel with the tweeter. So if I were to unplug the tweeter here, the door speaker just stops working. Alright, so if you're looking at my door now, you might think it looks a little bit different than yours, or it could look the same, but my entire cab is sound deadening, so this is part of the sound deadening process, or one of the layers that I did do on the door. Now, I did do this a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, but I wish I did record this entire process. It's very long. It was 100% worth it, but you can find a little bit more information or videos and photos on my Instagram highlights. So if you're interested, check that out. I'll try my best to make this make sense. So the door tweeter runs parallel with the door speaker down here, meaning that the tweeter has 4 wires that run into it, but the door speaker down here has 2. So I believe there's power into the tweeter, and then it runs through the tweeter back down into the door speaker down here. So the only issue is that if you have a crossover like this or something similar to this, is that you have to power the crossover through, positive and ground, and then it splits, one to the door speaker and one to the tweeter. The only issue is that you have to have the crossover somewhere and then power it by these 2 wires, and then you run the other 4 wires, 2 to the door speaker down here and then 2 to the tweeter. So what I'm probably gonna do is maybe splice or cut the wires up here somewhere and then see if I can make it work. I ended up taking off the wrapper on the wires so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Is that it starts off as 4 different wires here, but then they end up going 2 to 1 on each side, positive and ground. So 2 wires are only into here. However, like I said, it runs parallel, so it does power back and goes through to power the lower door speaker. I'm gonna give this a try. Unfortunately, I don't have the correct tool to test like a live wire and stuff like that. It would probably be a lot easier if I did, but unfortunately I don't. So what I did is that I unplugged the door speaker down here through the stock harness, and then I had the new speaker and tweeter down here plugged in through the crossover, and I have the power wire or the in wire that runs to the crossover, and I plugged it in to the 2 of the 4 wires here. So purple is positive and pink is ground. So what I'm assuming is that it's either gonna work or it doesn't work. Since 2 of these wires are power wires, then the other 2 power the speaker down here. All right, let's see if this works. Because I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah, I got what it takes. Nope, so let's go ahead and switch the wires around. Now I'm gonna plug it into the next ones up here. So it's power here and the ground there.
Skipping breaks, feeling lost, feeling great, popping off, singing straight, never stop, never changed. All the squad here to play, and I've got something.
Alright, so that ended up working just like how I thought. But if you're looking at the plug this way with the little indentation facing you, it's the top 2 plugs, so the purple and pink. Purple is positive and pink is the ground. And what I'm gonna do now is that I'm gonna splice from the original plug, so that way I can just plug it in directly without having to do this crazy stuff. Whew. All right, so that took longer than I wanted to, but what I did on the stock tweeter is I depinned the original plug, and I also removed 2 of the pins from the wire here. and I transferred them over to the crossover wire here. That way I don't have to worry about doing any cutting or any splicing. It's just, you know, plug and play. And technically I could go back to stock speakers if I wanted to, but if you look at this one compared to the stock one, honestly, I probably won't ever go back. I'm sure you're like, hey Mike, why did you depin the plug when you can just buy it online? But yes, you can. It does exist somewhere, but you still have to do some splicing and cutting. And well, if you do it this way, you don't have to worry about cutting the original wire, and you just pretty much, you know, plug it in. This is where you can do some more modification. This is the adapter for the 6.5 speaker to fit in the 6x9 spot. And these little tabs here kind of stick out too far. And when you put the speaker in here, it doesn't really sit flush. No matter how much you turn it, it just doesn't sit flush. So what you have to do is that you gotta cut all these tabs right here and just grind them down, so that way it can look just like this. With the speaker in and with all these little tabs grinded down, the speaker should sit in here like just like this and sit all the way flush all the way across. So I did use the provided screws that came with it that are obviously too long, but you know, it doesn't really matter because nothing's gonna really hit it. So I have the speaker here mounted into the adapter. It's all flush now. I have the mounting points closest to the hole here. That way I have enough slack to mount the crossover up higher somewhere out the way. So these are the adapter mounting plates for the tweeters that come with it. Obviously there is no hole drilled for this tweeter to fit, so I'm just gonna trace a hole, cut it so that way it can kind of sit flush in here. Damn, like a glove, perfect. Okay, so everything is mounted pretty good. Got the door speaker here. There's enough slack in the wire. Crossover is taped here. That way it does not interfere with the door panel once it's mounted. Got everything zip tied, all the wires cleaned up. Got it plugged in, and the tweeter mounted here, sitting flush. It's not screwed in, but it's in there pretty tight, so it's not going anywhere. The rear door is so much easier. So you just unbolt the old speaker, unplug it. You're going to get the adapter plates. You're going to have to do the same thing as the front and trim off these little edges here around in order for the speaker to fit. Once you get it bolted in, put it in and plug it back in. Everything mounted up, speaker sitting flush. Got the harness on the back side running through the hole here on the adapter plate. Now I'm just gonna put this bad boy in. Got everything in. This is the new speaker in here. Gonna go ahead and do the other side and get everything put on and test it out. All right, so everything done now, it's completed, but before we end the video, I wanna mention a couple things. If you're gonna run this speaker or something similar, or really any speaker, don't expect too much out of it, especially if you're not gonna run an amp to it. Now, what I mean by that is that the radio does not have enough power to power these aftermarket speakers. So if you really want to maximize the potential of the speaker, you want to run an amp to it. Now, I didn't do it because I didn't want to invest too much into this audio setup. I was really trying to stay budget friendly, and this was the best route that I could take. So I do have a sub that I've been having in my closet for a couple years now, and I'm going to install that too. So the main difference of what I wanted to do was that I wanted to gain more clarity, especially at a higher volume, which these do it for me. So maybe in the future, I will upgrade to a better speaker and maybe run an amp to it. But for now, this works for me. So I'll probably end the video here, and thanks for watching.